Hello and welcome to Rick's RC Flying Channel. This is episode 12 of the Sweet and Low build. Now in episodes 9, 10, and 11, we saw how the wing panels were constructed. In episode 12, we're going to look at the few steps that were taken to bring the wing to this stage. Now, in the previous episodes, we saw how we constructed spar box in this area here. So that was where we had the top spar, the bottom spar. We had plywood web bracing applied to the front and back, leaving this area hollow, in essence, a spar box. We then also went to the number 2 ribs and we cut openings to allow the wing joiner to slide in. We made the same openings on the center ribs, this allowing us to slide the wing joiner all the way in here. Now the wing joiner has been cut out to incorporate the dihedral angle. It's made of 5-ply, 1/4-inch plywood. Now, when you take the wing joiner and you bring it into one of these wing panels, you're going to slide it all the way in till it makes contact with the number 3 rib. Now, when you put it in there for the first time, just trial fitting it, it's going to feel kind of loose. Now, that was incorporated in the design. The reason is if it was a precision tight fit and you slide that in, you would end up with a very thin film of epoxy. By allowing the spar box to have a little extra space in there, it allows a more generous amount of epoxy coating the wing joiner, and that's what we want. So in order to join the 2 wings, you're going to put a generous amount of 30-minute epoxy in the spar box. You'll then take your wing joiner and take this wing panel and put it into this wing panel first and push it all the way in till it makes contact with the number 3 rib. Now you're going to have epoxy oozing out here, and that's a good sign because that's telling you you've put enough epoxy in the spar box. You'll do exactly the same with the other wing panel. So you'll slide that onto the wing joiner, but don't put them together yet. Leave a space, something like this, because now you have to apply 30-minute epoxy onto the center rib. So you're going to coat one side and then the other. Once that is completed, then you'll take the 2 wings and you'll bring them together till you have a nice tight fit. And when you do that, you're going to have epoxy starting to squeeze out the top and bottom. Simply wipe that away. Now, the center ribs were installed at the correct angle to accommodate the dihedral when the wings are joined. Also, the wing joiner has the dihedral incorporated. So when this all comes together, it automatically builds in the dihedral, as you can see. But now that the wings are joined, you'll notice that it'll have this teeter-totter effect. So what we need to do is support the outer sections of the wing so that the wing cannot move. It must be solid. Once you've supported it, ensuring that they're perfectly mated, it would be prudent just to do a little check, pick 2 equal points, exactly the same on both sides, take a measurement just to check to see if one wing is slightly higher or lower. Now, generally speaking, if everything was accurately built, as it comes together, like in this case, they were exactly both at the same angle. But taking that little measurement is just a little extra insurance that that is the way it's worked out for you. And if you have to make a small adjustment, you can slightly do that, but keep an eye that you keep this properly together. Once that was completed, you allow the epoxy to cure. Being 30-minute epoxy, I gave it close to 24 hours. The next step was to reinforce the center section. And I did that with fiberglass cloth and epoxy resin. Now, the cloth I use is 3-ounce fiberglass. You can use 4, 5, and 6 ounce, just bearing in mind that the heavier the fiberglass cloth you choose, the thicker it is, and well, not to mention, it adds more weight. However, that's a choice you can make. Also bear in mind, if it's thicker, you have to probably spend a little more time feathering it here, and sometimes a little bit of filler can help you with that. Now I will provide a separate video that shows the process of applying the fiberglass cloth, which was done on both sides, top and bottom. Now it does add some strength, but it also adds durability because the wing will be time and time again mounted to the fuselage. And if you just leave this with as balsa wood, and balsa wood being soft, it'll eventually show signs of fatigue. By fiberglassing the center section, you eliminate that issue. The next step was to attach the ailerons. And again, in a Sweet and Low video, I have where we show how to attach the elevator to the horizontal stabilizer. I'll provide that link in the description, but the ailerons were attached exactly the same way with the same hinges. So the hinges that were used are the Robart hinges, and in this case, 5 of them were applied, and this creates a really good solid connection to the trailing edge. Now, the Sweet and Low instructions, and by design, they show having the aileron servos mounted in the center section of the wing, and then through push rods and linkages, they are attached to this area of the ailerons. Now, it's a very common way to do it, and it works quite well. However, bear in mind that the torque and push rod and force value is here. Now, these are fair size ailerons. They're 36 inches long and 2 inches wide. And, you know, for me personally, realizing that the moment arm force is here and the aerodynamic load is on one side of it. Another common way of installing aileron servos is mid-wing. And I chose to do it that way. And one of the reasons I like that is you have the same thing. You've got the push rod, the torque and moment arm, and the forces applied in the center of the aileron. The aerodynamic load is equal on both sides of that moment force, which I personally like the dynamics of that. But again, you can choose either one. You can stick with the design instructions, or you can mount them out here. And I do have a separate video that shows the mounting hardware that I use to mount the ailerons into this box. It's very simple. It's just a base, and this here is the top where the cover ultimately gets on. But we'll get a little more into that later on. The airplane also had web bracing installed between all the ribs. That is 1/8 inch balsa wood. Now, when it comes to web bracing, that can be a topic in itself. Like in modeling, there's always many different ways of doing things. There's different opinions on web bracing. Be quite honest, they all have their good merits. For example, you can't go wrong if you install web bracing, the balsa wood grain in the vertical position, and ideally the front and back of the spars, and that'll give you pretty much all the strength you're looking for. However, web bracing can be installed on one side. Web bracing can be even installed between the spars. So in essence, you end up really like with an I-beam. Web bracing, the wood grain can be horizontal. I mean, at the end of the day, those kind of choices I make depending on the wing design, and particularly the structural integrity of the design is where I may sometimes make a choice. Now, generally speaking, you'll find the instructions and plans will always show you the recommended web bracing, which more commonly is, again, web bracing where the wood grain is vertical, and ideally both sides of the spar will give you all the strength you possibly would need. And we have the wingtips installed. Actually, it was very few pieces required to make up the wingtip. I added a little extra reinforcing here. It's got a generous wing gazette. This is made of sandwiched layers. And so it's a very strong wingtip for the few pieces it takes to make it. So really, the wing is complete. There's just one more step I need to take is mount this into the fuselage and locate where the wing bolt holes will be and drill that through. Then the wing will receive one last final sanding and a little bit of shaping where required, and it'll be ready for covering. Now, when it comes to covering, you do have choices. A lot has to do with your shop environment. Probably the most friendliest, easiest, non-toxic finishing is a plastic film such as Monocoat or Ultra Coat. There's other ones as well. They come in a variety of colors, very durable, works well with gas or glow, electric. It's basically ironed on the outer edge, and then either an iron or a heat gun, you heat shrink it, it tightens up, and you end up with a really nice tight drum look. Very commonly used in sport aircraft, and it's also very cost effective. But most importantly, you can do it practically anywhere. Now, there are cases, particularly if it's a standoff scale or scale, a military airplane, or you're looking for a very specific color and texture, that's when paint really comes into it. And now, in terms of paint choices, probably the friendliest non-toxic approach would be latex paint. It's water-based, easy cleanup. It can be brushed on, rolled on, sprayed. It really doesn't have really powerful fumes such as some other paints. And it works well with gas-powered electric airplanes. However, I don't recommend using latex paint with glow-powered airplanes. And if you want to see sort of a latex finish, I have a video where I have a Fokker triplane, and it's a kind of a green one, and that is latex paint. So that was brushed and rolled on. And so it gives you an idea of what that sort of can look like. Now, another type of paint, many times used for like vintage aircraft, is dope finishes. They can be very nice, although they are much more difficult to work with and apply. The fumes are very strong. Now, dope is made like nitrates and buretates. You do need safety equipment, breathing equipment, like a mask and goggles, gloves. Now you can brush it on, it takes a bit of practice to get good results. It can be sprayed. And again, you should have a controlled environment. Temperature, humidity can affect dope finishes when you're applying them. However, they can, on fabric, have a really nice look. Another type of paint, and by the way, the dope finish, I have a video of a Super Cub. That's a dope finish. Another type of paint, which I'll actually be using on this model, is epoxy paint. And again, being epoxy, it's two parts, so you do have a time window to work with. The reason I'm choosing epoxy is because it's so durable. It's impervious to gas, glow. It's amazing durability and long lasting. Although it has the same challenges like a dope finish, you do need a controlled environment. Again, safety equipment, mask, goggles, gloves. It can be brushed. I use an epoxy paint called Class Coat. Great stuff. And if you want to see a epoxy finish, I have a video on a Cap 10. It's a red airplane. Now that's an epoxy finish. And again, it should be in a controlled environment. A spray booth of some sorts is ideal. Now, you can spray paint outside. You got to pick your day, the conditions, because different weather brings on challenges, wind, dust. One of the things, spray painting outside, you do this beautiful job. You just finished spray painting it. You stand back and you look at your work of art and a fly lands on it. You want to talk about a frustrating situation. So, you know, spray painting outside can be a little tricky. And in terms of covering the wing, I'm going to be using Zig Coverall. That's a polyester fabric. It gets basically um, glued on, for no better description, on the outer edge, and it's heat shrinkable. So you can use an iron or a heat gun, and this heat shrinkable, whether it's even the plastic films, takes out some wrinkles and gives you that really nice tight drum look. The reason I'm making those choices is I'm making this sort of a standoff scale World War I airplane, and I wanted that fabric look and texture. So that's why I'm using Zig Coverall, and then painting it because I want a very specific color. So that's basically where we're at, and I'm going to make a video uh, just on the covering of the wing, and then another video just on the painting. I do have a video out there just showing the brackets I use to install the Ailerons servos in this type of mount, which is pretty straightforward. It's just basically a flat piece of wood here, and then I use an aluminum bracket to actually mount the servo. And this here is to allow for a cover panel to go over the servo. So that's where we're at with the Sweet and Low wing. As always, if you have any comments or questions, I always welcome them. If you like the video, please select like and or subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.